Hello and welcome to the screencast on domain. Domain is all possible input values, or your x, for which the function is valid, so when there is a y value associated with it. Now this is a linear function, so the parent function, f of x equals x, is shown. So this is a straight line, which means there are no gaps and no breaks in it. So our domain, looking at the x values along, is going to be all real numbers. Looking at another graph, this is the parent function f of x equals x squared. Now again, we're looking at those x values and we're seeing if they have a corresponding y value, which in this case they all do. Now this graph continues up and out as it grows. So again, our domain is all real numbers because there are no breaks or asymptotes to see. Here we have the parent function f of x equals the square root of x. Now as you can see, these positive x values have corresponding y's, but these negative x values do not. The graph that is shown stops here and continues to the right. So therefore our domain will be all real numbers such that x, now it has to be 0 or greater, so x is greater than or equal to 0. And that is the domain for this graph. Looking at our next one, we have the parent function, f of x equals x cubed. Again, we look at those x values and see that they do, in fact, have corresponding y values. So therefore, the domain is all real numbers because there are no breaks or asymptotes. And our next graph is shown, has the parent function f of x equals the cube root of x. As you can see, it moves along like so. And there are no breaks or asymptotes, so our domain will be all real numbers. Now this has the parent function f of x equals 1 divided by x squared. And as you see, these lines or graphs will approach the x and y axis but never actually equal it. So that's where our asymptotes occur. On the x-axis, there's an asymptote, and on the y-axis, there's an asymptote. Now what that means is there will be negative x values, there will be positive x values, but there will not be a value when x is 0. So our domain, all real numbers, such that x cannot equal 0. On the next graph, we have the parent function f of x equals the absolute value of x. And looking, we see that there are no breaks or asymptotes. So our domain will be all real numbers. Here we have f of x equals 1 divided by x, where these graphs again are approaching our x and y axis, but are not equaling it. So we have these negative x values, we have these positive x values, but we're missing that value in the middle. So our domain, all real numbers such that x does not equal 0. Now it's your turn. Here are two graphs for you to try to find the domain for. So the first one is our parent function, f of x equals 1 divided by x squared. So we have our x, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. And we have our graph shown here. And here. So you have to find the domain there. And over on the right, we have the parent function, f of x equals the square root of x. We have our -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. And our line goes from here over and continues on. Thank you for listening, and good luck.